What's going on, everyone? It's Millen here from True Horizon. Today we're going to be covering the pricing models that actually work and actually scale for your AI agency. This is one of the most common questions that I get. It's one of the things I see people struggling with the most is how to actually price your AI agency. The truth is there are only a few models that really work, and the one that you choose can really make or break your margins. And so today we're going to be covering the three main pricing models that we've tested, which are hourly models, so traditional time and materials, monthly retainer, which is always recommended, versus enterprise and department-based pricing for much larger companies, plus the value levers that you can actually pull to move your price up or down. So getting right into it, why trust these pricing models at all? These are pricing models that we have learned in the trenches, learned in the hard way, scaling to $2.5 million in revenue in less than 8 months, looking to scale to $250,000 per month by the end of the year. It looks like we're actually going to go ahead and pass that. This is over 25 client engagements, working from pre-revenue startups all the way up to multinational enterprises. Everything in here is 100% practical application. Again, lessons that myself and my two co-founders, Nate Herc and Tyler Baucom, learned the hard way. So getting right into it, what we're going to cover today, again, the pricing strategy roadmap or agenda for this video. First, the hourly model. Secondly, the monthly retainer model. Finally, the enterprise model, and then different value levers that we can go ahead and pull to increase pricing for your AI agency. So jumping into the hourly time and material model. This is the traditional model, charging per hour of engineering or consulting work. I don't recommend this for AI agencies. However, it does have its pros in very specific use cases. So first of all, like I talked about in some of my other videos, you always want to go with a monthly retainer model. However, that is sometimes out of budget or is too much of a big commitment for some SMBs or other businesses. And so that is a good time to use these, where after you've maybe done some initial scoping, maybe you've charged for an AI audit, and you have an idea of what some of the initial projects could be. You, as a business owner, know in your mind roughly how long it might take you. So you can kind of probe the client to say, okay, signing a 6-month retainer is too big. Totally understand. How about we start with 100 hours of work, 50 hours of work, and you can use that bundle of hours to go ahead and prove value with a small pilot project. Again, this works really well for skeptical or budget-conscious clients. It's not something that we do anymore at our agency, but that's because the types of clients that kind of look for this model are typically priced out of our budget. This does have a time and place in like enterprise customers for very specific scopes of work, but we'll talk about that towards the end. And so again, some of the pros here, really simple to start, really easy for clients to understand because they can really equate in their mind, okay, 30 hours, I'm paying $1,000, and they can very easily, quantify the value there. And it's super low barrier to entry. It doesn't require any complication, anything at all. You can use industry standard AI engineering rates to actually come up with your rate or whatever makes sense for you based on your own industry experience. But again, some of the cons here is misaligned incentives and can really cap your upside potential. Like if you are delivering an automation that is going to save the business owner $30,000 per month, but you're only charging them $1,000 for a bundle of hours, there's a massive gap there that you're missing out on because you can obviously charge way more. And it's very difficult to scale. This is always going to be based on who's on your team, how many hours can they put, and for those reasons, I don't really recommend it. But again, it has its time and place to serve as a bridge for small or skeptical clients. So moving on to the next model, this is the monthly retainer model. This is the one that I absolutely recommend. And core principle here is you really want to price on the outcome, not on the hours. And that's how you actually come up with how much you can charge per month. Now, there's a few other levers you can pull here for pricing, but that's the core. That's kind of the core of it, is of how you come up with your monthly rate. And so there's a few different things to do here. There's actually two ways to get value-based pricing with LLM with AI systems. The first one is your traditional hours saved. So let's say you have a marketing team that you're working with that you save them 100 hours per month. You can quantify that because you can see how much does that cost, how much does that marketing team cost, how much is 100 hours per month of that marketing team. So that right there is a cost save if your AI solution is actually going to deliver on that. The second component is now you've delivered the solution for that marketing team. They now have 100 hours per month back. What kind of value can they create with that time back? And how much does the business owner value that? Are they able to spend more time talking to customers? Can they innovate better on the product? Can they innovate better on strategy? All these types of things are new value creation things that the marketing team previously wasn't able to do until you delivered your AI automation solution. And so those are the two things of essentially of how you can go ahead and price outcome. I can make a separate video as to how to actually drill into numbers on that. But again, some of the core kind of positive things about the monthly retainer here is that you get predictable revenue, so you can very easily create financial projections and things like that for your own business, as well as allocate resources like when you can pay your team. Clients can also plan their own budgets with fixed monthly costs, so it kind of helps on both sides, and you always get that ongoing optimization, flexible scope. As things come on, you can better adjust and pay the client, and deliver for the client that way. So what are some of the tiers here on the retainer? Again, I explained how you can at least get a baseline with the value-based pricing as to how much you might be able to charge per month. And again, the kind of key thing is you're embedding yourself here as a strategic AI partner. And so here's just a few tiers. We at True Horizon now actually really only have two tiers. Like we have our basic tier that starts at $25,000 per month. And then we have our enterprise tier, which is totally custom pricing. As we hire more and scale more, we might bring on another starter/business tier to help us capture some of the smaller clients. But for now, we're really focusing time on the larger clients. For anyone else who's just getting started or doesn't have the leverage of a very successful YouTube channel like Nate's, my co-founders, you probably want to have something similar to this. And so you would have a starter tier. And by the way, this is exactly what we did in the beginning before we made a bunch of hires for engineers and things like that. And so start with, a tier 1 starter where you're going to deliver, one automation or one agent, something that you've scoped out already. You can have very basic standard response times, basic documentation, and the client can only reach you over email. Just as an example of some of the things that you might want to pull here. The second one would be a professional or a business tier where you're delivering stronger automations. Maybe you now have a 24/7 turnaround time. Maybe the client gets onboarded into your own client portal. Maybe you have weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly strategy calls and stand-ups. Maybe you can quantify a pricing difference here by having another resource. So maybe you actually want to bring on an engineer, or if you're just getting started and you don't have FTEs yet, maybe you want to go and get a contractor who's going to work with you on the actual project. So those are some of the levers you can pull there. And then the final one here would be enterprise or kind of much larger, let's call it $100 million companies where, you're charging the most. They have the most flexibility and unlimited iterations. They're going to have a dedicated account manager. Maybe they'll have an extra AI engineer, 24/7 support, and maybe you're going to do custom integrations here as well. Whereas before, you're only going to do data integrations that are native to n8n or make.com or whatever you're using. Tier 3 enterprise, maybe now you can write custom code and integrate with APIs. Now, again, these are just examples. This is like somewhat similar to what we had done in the beginning. However, I strongly recommend you do what makes sense for your business and what your clients look for. In every market, it's going to be different. In the US market, you can kind of get away with something like this because there's so many businesses and the currency is the strongest. So people pay. So it's really easy. If you're in a smaller market, maybe your starter plan is going to have higher resource SLAs. It really depends. And so test what works with your customers, test what works in your market, and with that, you can come up with a structured retainer tier-based pricing model that everyone can understand, and you can effectively have it on your website as well so people can see it. The last pricing model is going to be enterprise or custom pricing. This model really works best for companies doing $500 million in revenue or for very heavily siloed organizations where each department essentially becomes a separate customer with different stakeholders, different budgets, and different processes. And we've done this now for multiple enterprises, and it works really well, especially in AI. Why it works? Because departments think in silos. A lot of them have separate P&L responsibilities. There are folks within each department that have to prove ROI to different people. There's, you might have different stakeholders that are in contact with you as the vendor. You're going to have like your procurement contact and things like that, but the marketing department, primary point of contact, is going to have a different budget than the finance department, than the legal department, than the HR department. They're all going to have to prove ROI to a different person as well. And so this is why it works really, really well. There's different timelines, different decision-making processes for enterprises as well. And so that's why the department thing really, really, really works. There are few examples of this, of like, let's say you're working with a marketing department. You would charge them a base fee of something. Let's just say it's $25,000 per month. That has some included SLAs. Maybe that has a dedicated project manager, dedicated AI engineer, 24-hour response time, right? And that flexible scope. Now it's effectively a retainer-based pricing model, almost like the exact same SLAs that we just talked about, except it's for that one department. And you can change price based on getting a feel for what that budget is, how bullish are they on AI, but more importantly, what are the projects that are going to drive value for that department? If we're doing things like campaign automation and content research and ideation and writing content, things that would allow them to save a ton of cost and get back a lot of time for value creation, you can bump that fee up significantly, especially for larger organizations who, the reality is they're going to be looking to lay off some folks as well, right? And that's going to be a massive cost saving for them too. And so that you can bake that into your fee and charge much higher for that. Let's say you're doing an operations department, right? And you're going to do a process optimization or system integration or workflow optimization that's going to go across the entire enterprise. And it's going to save everyone on there a ton of time, right? One example of this is, let's say, everyone in the company has to receive some type of company-wide email that then has some flow, some form they have to fill out that, then goes and integrates to the CRM. Let's say you automate that entire process, or you automate the creation of processes like that. That's a company-wide thing. That is a ton of value. And so you can go ahead and bump that fee up even more. And then another thing here is the multi-department bundle. So, as you get deployed in more and more departments, as your footprint expands within that enterprise, you can go ahead and give, kind of like a volume-based discount for different departments. We're actually in the middle of a negotiation like that right now, and that is something that helps a lot close a sale. And regardless, you're going to be pretty profitable on this model as it stands. So some value levers that you can pull to increase pricing. We talked about some of these throughout this video so far, but each lever here provides justification for higher tier pricing, allows you to customize offering, and allows you to have negotiation within your, within the deal. Because especially when you're talking to an enterprise, there are so many things that go into a negotiation like that, right? It's not just what are you delivering. You have things like payment terms. You have different IP clauses. You have language around publicity provisions. Like, can you use their logo? Can you get case studies? There's so many different things that you want to negotiate for as the vendor. And so a lot of these things are things that you can use in those negotiations. So, for example, resource allocation, right? Like we talked about having one engineer versus 3 versus 5 and a project manager. You can also talk about you have more experienced guys and less experienced guys, right? Maybe your senior AI engineer versus your junior AI engineer, you can charge for them differently, right? And again, that's another lever you can pull. Priority support, weekend and night coverage, response time. All these are things that clients will also look for. SLA guarantees. So here, this gets into actual software stuff, but like uptime commitments, bug fixes, and regression testing. Like the server is going to be available 99% of the time. You can have different rollback guarantees, and this gets into like how the actual software is performing. Integration complexity. So example, if you're using N8N or Zapier, you're only going to use those nodes that have native integration there. And if the client has something that's outside of that, you're going to charge for that, right? Because that's a custom API integration. Or example, Salesforce versus like a custom CRM or a custom ERP that's not there. To hook into those systems is engineering overhead. And so you can charge more for that. And then change velocity, right? How many iterations, how many modifications can we make to the scope per month? This is one of the amazing things about the monthly retainer. A lot of clients like to pay for this because they know that things change. And so you can cap that, you can increase that, and that's another really, really great lever to pull in terms of pricing as well. So some of the key takeaways here and recommendations. Again, most AI agencies should definitely build their business around monthly retainers. This is going to help your client relationships. It's going to give you better and more predictable revenue, and you're going to be able to charge way more. Only recommend using the hourly pricing for initial discovery, initial proving value, getting in there, charging, let's say for 30 or 40 or 50 hours or something, delivering one automation, and then transitioning them into a longer term pricing, a retainer pricing model. And then we also covered the enterprise department, and the kind of key recommendation here is treat each department effectively as a separate customer with different pricing based on value and with different service levels based on what exactly they're looking for, so that you can get the most out of what you are charging. So that was all I had for the pricing model. It's the first time I'm doing a call to action here, so like not going to spend a lot of time here. But if you want to learn directly from me and my co-founders Nate and Tyler in terms of how we scaled our AI agency to well over $100,000 per month, how we're planning on scaling it to $250,000 a month and beyond, I will go ahead and put the link to our AI agency partner incubator in the description. Applications close on September 26th, so if you're watching this after that, sorry, but if not, go ahead and check it out if you think it'll be interesting. Otherwise, appreciate your time as always, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.